Before I tell you how it started, let me tell you where I was the night it ended. I was sitting in my car outside his apartment building at 11:47 at night, with two bags in the back seat and my phone shaking in my hand. And on that screen was a conversation that answered every question I'd been too scared to ask for over a year. He told me he was my person. Every single week, he told me that. Turns out he was telling someone else the exact same thing. If you've ever loved someone who made you feel chosen, right up until the moment they didn't, stay with me, because this story is going to hit somewhere deep. Hit like before we even start. Share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. Let's go back to the beginning. I almost didn't download the app. I remember it was a Wednesday night in late October. My best friend Petra had been on my case for weeks. "You've been single for 8 months, Lena. Just try it. What's the worst that could happen?" And I kept saying no because honestly, the whole thing felt desperate to me. It felt like admitting something, like waving a white flag at romance and saying, "Fine, I'll let an algorithm take a shot at it." But that Wednesday night, I was sitting alone, eating leftover pasta, watching a show I'd already seen twice, and I thought, okay, fine, let's see what happens. I downloaded it at 11 p.m. I set up a profile in about 12 minutes, and he was the third profile I saw. His name was Callum. His photos were normal, not overly posed, not suspiciously perfect. He was smiling in one of them, like someone had just said something funny just off camera, and something about that felt real to me. His bio said he was done with games and looking for something that actually meant something. I read it twice. I remember thinking, who writes that and means it? I was about to find out. We matched within minutes. He messaged first, not with something lazy, not a single emoji. He actually referenced something specific from my profile, a book I mentioned, and asked me what I thought of the ending. That was it. That was all it took. We talked until 2 a.m. that first night. By the time I finally put my phone down, I was smiling at the ceiling like a teenager. I told Petra about him the next morning. She listened carefully, asked a few questions, and then said, "Just be careful, okay?" I laughed. I told her she was being paranoid. I told her this one felt different. I told her a lot of things that I was about to spend the next 14 months unlearning. Our first date was at a small Italian place he chose. Nothing fancy, just warm and quiet with good lighting. He was even better in person, easy to talk to, genuinely funny, the kind of person who listens when you speak, not just waits for his turn. I drove home that night with the windows down, even though it was cold, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is finally it. The next few months were everything I had ever wanted love to feel like. He remembered things. Not the big things, anyone can remember the big things, but the small ones. He remembered that I hate mushrooms but love truffle oil, which makes no sense, and he thought that was hilarious. He remembered the name of my sister's dog. He texted me during thunderstorms just to check in, because I'd mentioned once, that they made me anxious. He said, "I love you," first, about 3 months in, on a completely ordinary Sunday morning over coffee. I cried. I genuinely cried. I thought they were the best kind of tears. He met Petra. She was polite, warm even, but later that night she pulled me aside and said, "He's charming, almost too charming." I brushed it off. I thought she just wasn't used to seeing me with someone who actually showed up. I thought her instincts were off this time. They weren't. The first real crack came quietly, the way cracks usually do. We had planned a weekend trip, nothing big, just a couple of nights away, and 3 days before, he canceled. The excuse was vague, something about work, something about timing. I swallowed the disappointment, told him it was fine. A week later, he showed up at my door with flowers and a long speech about how much he meant to me, and I felt the disappointment dissolve like it had never existed. That's the thing about a man who's good with words. He can make you forget what his actions just told you. But the forgetting gets harder over time. There's a pattern to it, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Wonderful for 2 weeks, distant for 1, a grand gesture to reset the clock. Repeat. I started adjusting myself around his moods without even realizing it. I laughed louder when he seemed withdrawn. I asked for less when he seemed stressed. I made myself easier to be around, smaller, quieter, like if I just took up less space, he'd have no reason to pull away. He forgot my birthday. Not completely. He remembered at the end of the day and called with excuses, but the morning came and went and there was nothing. I pretended I was fine. I was so far from fine. Petra finally sat me down and said it plainly. He treats you like an option, not a priority. I got defensive. We argued for the first time in years over him, over a man who wasn't even in the room. That should have told me everything. He met my family. He turned the charm up to full, and my mother absolutely adored him. She pulled me aside and whispered, "Don't let this one go." And I remember feeling this wave of relief, like my family's approval canceled out my own doubts, like their certainty could borrow me some of mine. Then, one evening, I picked up his phone to read him a notification he asked me to check, and there was a message sitting open that I wasn't meant to see. My stomach dropped. He was calm. He explained it away so smoothly, so quickly, that by the end of the conversation, I was apologizing for almost doubting him. That is a particular kind of skill, making someone feel guilty for their own intuition. He had it mastered. 14 months in, I finally asked the question I had been swallowing for half a year. I asked him where this was going. I asked him plainly, quietly, without drama. Are we building something real together, or am I the only one who thinks that's what this is? He told me I was being intense, that I was putting pressure on something good and ruining it, that not everything needed a label. I felt my face get hot. I pushed back. He got colder. I raised my voice for the first time in our entire relationship, and he just went completely still and silent, like he was waiting for me to exhaust myself. And then, when I finally stopped, he said, "Can we just not do this right now?" And I apologized. I actually apologized for asking to be chosen. I started talking to Silas, a coworker, just in passing at first. He had a calm way about him. He never offered opinions I didn't ask for. He just listened. It was such a small thing, but it was so different from what I had at home that it felt enormous. I gave Callum a quiet ultimatum. He said exactly the right words. I stayed. I went back to Petra, told her everything, and she didn't say, "I told you so." She just held my hand and let me cry. That was worth more than any apology I'd gotten in months. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It was a Tuesday. I was borrowing his laptop to send a work file, mine was updating, and a notification slid down from the top of the screen. A name I didn't recognize. Ren. The message was 3 sentences, and I read it in about 2 seconds, and those 2 seconds rearranged everything. It was intimate. It was familiar. It was not new. I didn't snoop further. I didn't need to. I sat completely still for 3 full minutes. My hands were cold. There was a ringing in my ears. I felt strangely calm in the way you feel calm right before something enormous happens, like the second before a car crash when everything slows down. I screenshotted it, closed the laptop, poured myself a glass of water, and waited. When he came through the door, I put the laptop on the table in front of him without saying a word. I watched his face. He lied first, said it was nothing, said I was misreading it. Then he deflected, said my reaction was the problem, not his actions. And then finally, the truth. He had been seeing Ren for the past 8 months. He didn't know how to end either relationship. He said he loved us both. That last sentence, that one sent something through me that I don't have the language for. I slapped him. One hard, clean, open-handed slap across his face. I'm not proud of it, but I am not sorry, not even a little. I grabbed my 2 bags. Had been sitting half-packed in the back of my wardrobe for 2 months, which tells you something about what part of me already knew, and I walked out. I sat in my car and called Petra and couldn't get a full sentence out. He called 11 times that night. I watched every single call light up my screen and go to voicemail. And for the first time in 14 months, I felt like myself. Healing is not beautiful. Nobody warns you about that. It is 3 a.m. on a Tuesday missing someone who was lying to your face. It is grieving a future that was never even real. Petra came and stayed with me for 2 weeks. We ate bad takeout and watched old movies, and she let me be a mess without making me feel like one. Ren reached out to me. I almost didn't respond, but I did, and what she told me cracked something open. She hadn't known about me either. He had built 2 separate realities and walked between them like it cost him nothing. We didn't become friends, exactly, but we gave each other something, the confirmation that neither of us was crazy. My work started coming back. My creativity, my focus, the version of me that existed before I spent 14 months making myself smaller. Silas would check in occasionally, never pushy, never with an agenda, just steady. I noticed how different steady felt from what I'd been living with. Callum sent flowers, then a long message, then he showed up at my building. I didn't let him up. I read his message, typed back 4 words, I deserve better. Goodbye. And blocked him on everything. It was the most powerful thing I'd done in over a year. I didn't go looking for revenge. The universe just had its own schedule. 3 months later, through a mutual connection, I heard that Ren had ended things with Callum after 2 months, called him emotionally unavailable, said he didn't know how to actually be with someone. He had to move out of the apartment they'd been sharing and go back to live with his mother. And then, and I still laugh at this, he sent me a message on LinkedIn. Professional, measured. Hope you're well. I miss talking to you. I read it once, and I laughed. A real, genuine, full laugh. For the first time, he made me laugh without trying to. I didn't reply. I just closed the app and went back to my life. A trip I'd booked solo, a new client I was genuinely excited about, and a quiet Tuesday evening where Silas brought over dinner and we talked for 4 hours without either of us noticing the time. Karma didn't arrive with noise. It just quietly gave him exactly what he had given everyone else. Nothing lasting. Here's what I know now that I couldn't see then. A man who wants you will make it obvious. Confusion is an answer. The person who is right for you will not make you feel grateful just for being acknowledged. You were not too much. You were exactly enough, just for the wrong person. And the love that is truly meant for you will not ask you to shrink, to wait, to wonder, or to beg. I think about the girl who downloaded that app at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday in October, eating cold pasta, hoping to feel something real. I don't regret her. She was brave enough to try, and brave enough, eventually, to leave. That took everything she had, and it was worth every single bit of it. If this story felt familiar, if you've ever loved someone and wondered why being chosen by them felt so much like being invisible, I want you to know something. You were never the problem. You were just practicing for something better. Share this with someone who needs to hear it right now. Subscribe so you never miss a story like this, and drop a comment below. Have you ever loved someone who never fully chose you? Tell me, because you are not alone, not even close, and neither was I.